My name is Jessica Rucker. I'm an educator, born, raised right here in the good colony, U.S. colony of Washington, D.C. I'm so grateful to be tonight's MC. And without further ado, let me introduce the rest of the crew. All right, we want to know who is in the room. So raise your hand, and I want you to lock your arm. What that means is do it with pride. So raise your hand if you are an educator. That's right. I see you watching. Really raise your hand if you are a student. She's fully scripted. I see you all back there. Raise your hand if you're a civil rights movement veteran. All right. Shout out. And raise your hand if you are an activist on current issues. Yeah. Wait, is that me? I hope so. All right. And then finally, rousing drum roll, please. And raise your hand if you have been involved in any way, shape, or form in any get out the vote efforts. All right. Let me tell you this. I'm a member of the Ellen Joe Baker Intentional Community Cooperative. And what I encourage my neighbors, my comrades, I say, listen, who you vote for is private, but whether or not you vote is part of the public record. So I hope you make history with me on November 5th. Yes. All right, we are here to introduce this second edition of Putting the Movement back into civil rights teaching by engaging sections of the book. Just like this book challenges the traditional narrative of the civil rights movement, tonight's event is going to be non-traditional. All right? Is that fair? Yeah, that's all right. Thank you. Remember that throughout the evening, you can order food and drinks. Order up, literally. And we appreciate, let's give them a round of applause, our service. All right. First, some questions. This wonderful book, most sections begin with a myth-busting quiz addressing the respective themes of voting rights, Black power, land, etc. So you have a few of those questions on a sheet of paper at your table. Please locate that sheet of paper and hold it up. Because I will be remiss as a former classroom teacher. There we go. I see some papers. Y'all hold it up. There we go. Great. In your group, you're going to try to answer as many. You're going to answer each question. You're going to take a few minutes, and then we'll come back together to see how you did. Note that there are questions on both sides. And no cell phones. Essential technology is allowed. On your brain. On your mark. Get set. I see some people looking at the picture. Get set. All right, go. Go ahead, Taylor. What you got?
But we can't participate because we'd be cheating. Right, exactly.
I think I know these. Oh, that's easy. Okay. Dang, this one is a little. I don't know this one.
Already on the second side.
Putting the pressure on.
Help. Let's see.
All 45 more seconds. All right, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3. All eyes on me. Oh, see, when y'all get back to your classrooms tomorrow, and the students are showing grace that they learn and grow in their learning, give them a little grace. This is hard, right? And I should have invited you before we started this process to introduce yourself, show your table mates some love, because I want everybody to go home happy. It's all good, no matter what answers you chose. We're going to review these together. All right. Question number 1. Number 1B, they collected information, they spied and they lied on civil rights leaders and spread misinformation. All right. Question number 2.
I got that right. Great.
That's right. B. This is Vietnam War.
Dang.
Vietnam War.
See, I thought it was like integration.
The Women's Political Council.
Dang.
Now you get double points if you learn this from watching Eyes on the Prize. All right, number 3. Number 4. It was the Laos County.
Okay. I really meant that one.
That's right. You're going to learn more about this awesome group later. I think we have one more question. A few more questions. All right. It was C. 5.2 million.
Damn.
Wow. All right. Question number 6. A. Grassroots activism and organizing. That's right. And question number 7. Oh, that was it. All right. Raise your hand if you're taking all the answers correct. All right. We have a couple seconds. Okay. Well, thankfully, we have put in the movement back in the civil rights teaching to help bring this history to the classroom. All right. Let's dive in. So now I'm going to invite our co-editors to respond to some questions. My apologies. I'm going to welcome Dr. Janice L. Bute, who's an associate professor emeritus at George Mason University and is now part of the 3 Points of View or 3PD consulting when you get your name. Come on. Dr. Henry Murray is a director in the Office of School Support and Implementation in Montgomery County Schools, Montgomery County, Maryland Public Schools, and the author of The Development of the Alternative Black Curriculum, 1890 to 1940, Countering the Massive Narrative. And then last, but certainly not least, Deborah Minkhart is Executive Director of Teaching for Change and a co-director of the Zen Education Project and so much more. Give them all of All right, Dr. Bute, can you tell us what about the dominant narrative this book challenges and the lens you use in selecting pieces to include? So this is a quote. It's on. You might have to kiss it. All right.
I'll use a quote for the introduction because I think it sort of succinctly says what we're challenging. So people think of the civil rights movement as this spontaneous, emotional eruption of glory, but thankfully, Black people, led by 2 to 3 inspired orators, right? But there's a way way more common, specific. And it's part of a very, very long history of decades, if not centuries, of freedom struggle, and not just for African Americans, and not just for people. So those are some of the falsehoods that we try to challenge in the book. And then there are also 6 lenses through which we try to look at the story. So we look at women who are often always left out of the story, right? We look at youth, who are a central part of, and we have some sick veterans who were youth at the time, right? who were not just being physical and emotional and angry, but also had some really deep thinking, strategic thinking as part of changing the narrative of how we address freedom in this country. Organizing, which is sometimes perceived, I think, in the 21st century as a very, very sexy thing. Before social media, it was hard, it was boring, it was scary, it was a lot of things, but it was important, and we needed to know how to do organizing, how to uplift that as an important part of the movement. The other three lenses were culture. How did what we call the civil rights movement change the culture and infuse new meaning and new understandings of who we are as a people? Institutional racism is obvious, all right? And then the interconnectedness of movements, the extent to which the various peoples of color on this landmass were connected to each other around institutional racism, and then also international connections. And then women's movement, LGBTQ movement, disability rights movement, so many other movements were connected to what we understand about the civil rights movement. So those would be some of the myths that were challenged and some of the lenses through which we understand it too.
I love this. If we were like on TV, they would pan back to me. Lenses are so important, right? That's why I'm wearing my glasses, because they frame the way in which I see the world. So thank you so much. Next, Elena, as a former teacher and principal, why did you choose to work on this book, and how does it connect to your family history?
So first of all, I'm just super happy to be back on the stage with my fam. We have been together now for over 20 years. So, and 20 years ago, I was the young one in the group. I was a young teacher. First of all, the civil rights movement has played a role in all of our lives. And one of the key themes in the movement is that it's been a long struggle. And so I grew up in a family where my grandfather, Donald Gaines Murray, was the first Black person to integrate the University of Maryland Law School. And one of the things that we learned from a young age was that when we think about the civil rights movement, it often involves local struggle and local history. And I'm sure everyone sitting here in this room has a story they can tell about their ancestors who, in the itty-bitty things that we did on a daily basis, challenge white supremacy and dominant culture. And so I grew up hearing these stories about my family challenging the status quo. And also, I grew up in a family of educators. Both of my grandmothers were teachers. So it's a combination of understanding kind of the larger activism and then the everyday activism that we have in our classroom. And that formed me into a teacher. So when I got out of graduate school, one of the things that I promised myself was that in the summers, I would do something interesting. And one spring, I had the opportunity of attending a symposium sponsored by Teaching for Change, where the keynote speaker was Howard Zinn. And it was awesome. And I wandered up to the person that organized it, Deborah, and I'm like, so hey, can I come volunteer over the summer? And so Deborah, in her generosity, and there's many people in this space who know of Deborah's generosity. In her generosity, she said, yeah, come on down. And so for the next 2 summers, I engaged in writing lessons, thinking about the civil rights movement that I would then implement in my classroom at Walter Johnson High School. And so in the second summer, Deborah, at the end of the summer, said, I worked with this amazing Businesswoman Denise, and we're coming up with a publication. Would you like to be a co-editor? And I was like, what? I'm like, 26? Like, seriously? Okay, you guys want to do it? I'm in. And so we, over that period of time, that formation, that conversation is what's at the heart of this book, which is that we are all part of this long collective struggle. And today we are still struggling. And so I'm so excited to see the impact that this book will have on today's teachers. And so that is my demo. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
One thing I want to emphasize before we get to hear from Deborah is that this movement is longer than a CVS receipt. So the first edition of this book led to work with teachers and students in Mississippi. This is part of the long nature of this work. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, after we published the first edition of the book, we got a phone call at our office. This was the old landline days. And it's from the superintendent of Macomb Public Schools, Dr. Pat Cooper. And he said, can you all come work in, well, have you heard of Macomb? Well, of course we have, where SNCC, a lot of SNCC's early work in Mississippi got started. He wondered if we could come work with teachers and students there to really examine how the civil rights movement was being taught or not. Janice and I had the honor of traveling there and working with the teachers, but pretty soon it became the students who were most engaged and wanted to move this fast forward. And so the students started creating documentaries to tell the history that they hadn't learned. They were both excited to learn, as some of them said, my small town, things happened in my small town. And they were angry they hadn't learned it before, so they wanted to create resources to teach younger folks. Create documentaries. I think we have a picture here of some of the youth that were with Polly on Shelton, who's here in a minute, visited and shared her book with the younger grades. And then the students traveled to DC. You can see there they went to Medgar Evers' grave at Arlington Cemetery. I think Julie Hipkins was probably involved in that. They went to Busboys and Poets. And they also went to the African American Civil War.
Yeah, the words and Tim.
Yeah.
And they entered their film into the National History Day competition. And they also presented a copy of their documentary for the SNCC Legacy Project. And we're still in touch with many of those students today.
Guess what?
Thank you so much. All right, so now we're going to have two of our contributors lead us through some activities from the book. But do not worry, we know that some of us are still eating. Please join me on the stage. And stay in the light, Caroline. Oh, we can do one at a time, my bad. Yes, indeed. All right. Take my slide up here. I wonder if this is how Miss Winfrey feels. Yeah. Okay. All right, say your way.
I'm Linda Treadway. I've been teaching since 1969. But I grew up in a small town in Nebraska and wrote an American Legion speech for the oratorical contest in 1963 to say we ought to pay attention to the civil rights movement. I don't know how I even knew about it, but I did, and then I moved to Washington. And teaching for change has been a part of my life for a very long time. But longer than that is the incredible work that photographers have done to contribute to the civil rights movement. And the lesson that's in the book about using photographs and the Socratic Seminar is one that I contributed years ago, and they revised, and it's even better than it was then. So please look at it and use it. I did some research today on looking at the SNCC website on photography. Amazing work to do this, to bring photography to us. The Matt Herron proposal said, we must register real images of change. We must have a record that would be incalculable in value to future generations, not to mention the perspective and understanding it might bring to contemporary Americans trying to solve the imponderable problems of race, which we're still trying to do. So we want you to do an activity at your tables that has to do with photographs, which are highly accessible teaching tools. And so, first of all, you see the words to lift every voice and sing. And secondly, you have 3 photographs. In Socratic seminars, there are no right and wrong answers. There are better supported ideas. So, choose 1 or 2 lines from Lift Every Voice and Sing that best represent the theme of this set of images by Matt Herring from the voting rights movement in Selma.
Great. Okay.
So the first is one where we're all doing, I just did it this morning in my ward, filled in a ballot by hand, and there are 2 more photographs there. So look at them and decide which line or 2 from Lift Every Voice and Sing
The first 2.
best applies to these photographs. So have a conversation. Yes, all 3.
Just one here, 2.
1 line. What holds them together?
Just 1 or 2 more.
Yes, I'm saying.
We have 2 minutes. 2 minutes of conversation.
Earlier one as well. So starting facing the and then yours, that is my child. Those are the 2. I'm just suggesting that because you had already chosen this one. Well, I thought we'd be cheating to play. Say what? I thought we'd be cheating to play. Cheating to play.
We should not play.
Oh, we should not. But she gave us something.
No, she gave it to me.
Oh, okay. What do you think? Let me just say, she is going to ask us.
Okay, then you should. Well, then you speak for us.
No.
Okay, well then, and then you all were, what did you choose?
Portland, Lakeland, to the. Unless you find something else. I want to find the waitress. We won't volunteer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Huh? Oh, I told him you were going to guess. I said, well, where did you have to participate? Yes, this is Deborah.
Deborah.
This chair's not too big. Let me see if I can, I'm sorry.
It's the ground too. Because the ground is
No, it's not. It is. I know this chair is.
Oh, yes. Are you gonna get one?
Yes, I'm going to try and find it.
Okay. She can sit on that coat.
So how much sleep have you had today?
Oh, that's a joke. I didn't go to bed at 4 o'clock.
And when did you get up?
6 o'clock.
You know,
About 30 more seconds and then we will have a couple of group share out.
I was up. I was up at 7:30. Start looking at stuff and looking at stuff.
Yeah, we were making
But I
our
don't
way to
think.
Baltimore.
Yeah, we making your way to Baltimore. But when I called it was 9 because I worked on it. That made that seemed to me that. But you know, what happens tomorrow? You're gonna try to rest or what?
I think I have some things that I need to do tomorrow. And
I'm gonna be back on the golf course.
good. I felt so bad.
No.
Okay, I hope you had some time to think a little bit about this. We're gonna have 2 groups share out. Jessica's gonna take a microphone to the group over here.
Oh yeah. I
All
cancel
right,
out.
first
I
group.
cancel out and play golf.
Right, play golf. Good.
You know,
Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Yeah, we got it.
All right. Broadcasting live from the front table. Okay, we had 2. Oh, hello. person, or TMP, that's what we can find you on Twitter. We had two that stood out to us. Out from the gloomy past till now we stand at last. And our other one, it was let us march on till victory is won.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, was there another group over here on this side?
Better hear.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Let us march on till victory is won.
Well, let's get
Because,
some
like,
unusual.
voting becomes marching, summarize it all. Right. Okay.
Well, we actually had the same thing.
Bring
We did
back.
the same thing. We started with facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on. But now Portland has a tradition.
And I'm gonna try to find something.
So call on us later.
All right, you might have to come back. I have to come back. I'll kick it back to you.
All right, so we encourage you and any of you, of the folks you know, to look through these lessons in the book and use them because as I know from teaching for many, many years, 55 years now, that using photographs is critical for student access, whether they're adults or children. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with all my enthusiasm to get us started with this activity, I forgot to introduce who I was on the stage with. So that was Linda Treadway, a former teacher, as she mentioned, former board chair with Teachers for Change. Now, we only got about 2 to 3 minutes to experience that activity, but the good news is it's in the book. So please make sure you get a copy. Thank you. All right. Early childhood teacher and children's book author, Paula Young Shelton wrote a lesson about comfort food. Paula is available to sign copies of the book after the program. So Paula, let's take a seat. Yep, there we go. Please tell us briefly about the activity and then give our guests an assignment.
So I'm a first grade teacher, and I definitely want to make sure that my students understand and connect with the civil rights movement, and understand what happened, what took place, and that it was everyday people. It wasn't just Martin Luther King, but it was everyday people that really made this movement happen. And like any good revolution, it started with food. Like you planned around the food, around the dinner table. And as a child growing up and sort of witnessing this, then I would hear civil rights leaders planning their strategy around the dinner table. So I thought food is a way to really help students connect to that as well. So the lesson in the book talks about creating a meal that will fortify, will strengthen the leaders to go forth. And so we challenge the kids to use alliteration to come up with your ideas, to use powerful ideas about freedom and struggle and peace to name the food. So that is your challenge. And if I can, I want to read just a little bit about I'm not holding it close enough. There we go. Is that better? You know, I'm a first grade teacher. I got it. So this is a short page from the book. As I was listening to civil rights leaders plan. The discussion continued as passionately as before, but as I set each place, the person seated paused, looked at me and smiled, patted my hair, and gave me a gentle hug. Dinner's ready, Mama called, carrying in a large dish of macaroni and cheese. Let me help you, Jean. Aunt Dorothy volunteered and went to get the bowl of green beans and a pitcher of sweet tea. In the kitchen, Andrea grabbed the baked chicken and marched in first, as always. Lisa came next, carrying a big, beautiful salad, and I got the basket of cornbread. So the food really represents how we come together as a community, how we strengthen each other and fortify ourselves with food. So the lesson today is to try to come up with a name for your food that represents our struggle today, that represents what we need to do to come together. So I don't know if it's going to be floating vegetables or you're going to rhyme something with your peace pot pie or whatever it is. But see if you can come up with a new name, and who knows, this Busboys Poets will adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you. For this activity, please consult the blue sheet. What is it, 2 or 3 minutes?
Okay.
And we want
Rename one
this
of
to
the
be
dishes at your
collective. We
table.
want to hear some collaboration. We want to see some collaboration. All right, your 2 to 3 minutes starts now.
But we know there's chicken, there's macaroni, stuff like that. Collard green, grit, shrimp and grit. Okay. So we're gonna do shrimp and grit. What would you? So alliteration would take us somewhere like Silas and Shrimp or something, huh? Like Silas Norman, Silas.
Oh, they won't know Silas.
No, they won't know many of these.
No, we can't do a proper name. I think oh no, we're trying to figure it out. Do us last. Yes. By the way.
Oh yes, but I think
No, it's great. It really starts
right, exactly.
and it gets you working again.
Yeah, and that's what I find. Like when we're on vacation, then we always take a couple of courses and playing games over the table together and stuff.
It works.
Yeah, it really works well. Multi-generational.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so all
What about organizing okra?
yes, perfect. Put that down. Put that down.
Organizing okra. I was trying to think of something with a C to go like with crab.
Gotcha. Coordinating.
Or you could do craft courage. Craft courage.
Well, no, but see, we've been doing the food with them. Oh, so they're doing both.
Well, you can say courageous crab.
Yes, courageous. Or crab burgers, like cornbread and
Right.
Which do you want? What do you want?
Organizing okra.
Please wave your blue papers at me, if you with me.
We're with you.
All right, we would love, we're going deep into the room. We would love to hear
Grassroots greens.
what you came up with. Please tell us your name as well.
Oh, we can do both.
But either of the food is still eating, so yes, okay. Bueller. Okay, I'm aging myself. Good evening. I'm Gerald Payne. I'm a 4th grade teacher in Alexandria City Public Schools. have one person in our group who is actually eating, and he's doing a fine job. He is eating a falafel, and so we had falafel of hope. We're trying to. Thank you for choosing falafel today.
Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. All right, the mic is hot. We got time for one more group. Anybody?
Say one more group. Let's put your hand up.
Yep, here we go. Thank you, Judy.
Oh, what's that?
This is from the rest of them because I didn't do nothing. Organizing okra. And grassroots greens.
I had some grassroots greens yesterday. Love it. All right, thank you so much. Let's give all a round of applause. All right. Now, we are at the part of the program where I want to give some shout outs and some recognition. So present tonight are more contributors to the book, including educators, Julian Hipkins III. Yeah. You know the number of people. Shout outs to teachers from shout outs to teachers from Inspired Teaching Demonstration School. Who developed lessons on the impact of book bans on how to resist. And then last but certainly not least, Allison, please, she served as the production manager. Please. All right, and just for funsies, I'm going to ask everyone to please stand to be recognized. Let's give them a rousing round of applause. I want to hear in the bar. I know I said last but not least, but Mr. Park, I would be remiss if I didn't say a special thank you to the other people who made this book possible, which are the Teaching for Change Board and staff. Please stand as well. Please stand. Thank you so much. We're also very honored to have people who made the history described in this book, people who continue to make this history and fight for justice today, present with us. So I would also like to give a rousing round of applause and shout outs to members of the SNCC Legacy Project. The creators of those grassroots greens. All the way from New York, we also have a 6th grade teacher who used the first edition of Putting the Movement Back into Civil Rights Teaching, and she taught her students about SNCC. Literally, she traveled all the way from New York City for tonight's event, and I'd like to shout out my fellow Tess Razor. And we're going to invite Tess to say a few words. It's her students' responses about learning about SNCC.
Okay. So hello. I sound crazy. I took the train here at 6 a.m. today. Yes. So I spoke with Judy today, and learning about SNCC, I met Diana Nash in college, and it had a profound impact on my life. And so when I began teaching 12 years ago, I really wanted my students to learn SNCC. And there weren't any real resources available until I found the original edition of the book. And so that was a really important text for me to find as an early educator. And then fast forward the past few years, I've had the privilege of having Judy come to class, Dottie Zellner and Chuck Neblett from SNCC. And every year, we learn a lot of things. And at the end of the year, the students all say the most impactful thing they learn is SNCC. And not necessarily that's what they say. They might be more specific. They might say, I I really love learning about Bob Moses meeting Amzie Moore. Like they get really,
they do.
they love it, and they love Lowndes County. Like that has the biggest impact. And Deborah asked me to think about why that is. Why is it? It's all the things you've all said about regular people doing things. But I also think thinking about the world that kids are living in now, it seems like things are kind of out of their control. Like they're just given presidential candidates. They're just given climate crisis. And so learning about SNCC and kind of these small moments, right, like Ella Baker sending Bob Moses to Mississippi, makes impossibility seem possible to them, and it makes it feel like they can have an impact on the world and that the things that they're given are not permanent. So everyone should teach SNCC. And I'm sure everyone in this room already knows that.
All right. I first welcome SNCC veteran and filmmaker Judy Richardson, who has a piece in the book on the evergreen 14-hour bar setting, must-see, Eyes on the Prize. And the book she co-edited, Hands on the Freedom Plow, is available for sale and for signing. So Lori in the back, wave your hand for it. Yes, thank you so much. All right, so Judy, please tell us. Oh, not yet. So please tell us briefly what people should know about Eyes on the Prize. And we know that to learn more, they can read your article, which is introduced in the book and posted in full at civilrightsteaching.org.
Yes, good that you asked that. Okay. Now, let me just say, I have written this down because at this point in my life, if I don't do something, I'll be up here for 3 hours talking about Eyes on the Prize. So, as you mentioned, I started in 1979. I was the first full-time employee. And when we were doing it, it was going to be a 1-hour documentary. It becomes, of course, 14 hours. Who knew? But when we started, everything, the scholarship, the films, everything was only about Dr. King, even when he went other places. So when he went to Birmingham, you didn't hear about Reverend Shuttlesworth. You only heard about Dr. King. When he went to Selma, you didn't hear about Mr. and Mrs. Point. You only heard about Dr. King. So what we did, and at that point, we also didn't have all the local movement scholarship that has come out since then. So you did not have Hassan Jeffries or Charles Payne or Emily Crosby or John Denver. All we had was everything focused on Dr. King. So the first 6 hours of Eyes on the Prize, which airs that first 6 hours of the 14-hour series, it aired in 1988. And it changed the narrative, it helped change the narrative about the way that we talk about the civil rights movement. So it showed local people as leaders, including women and young people. That's in 1986, when nobody's talking about this. As a matter of fact, the reason you saw Mrs. Joanne Robinson was because as the first and the only person for the first 6 months, I'm sitting there reading Dr. King's account of the Montgomery bus boycott. And I see the name of Joanne Robinson. And it's like, oh my God, a woman in the middle of this. So it's like, how do I find her? So I talk to somebody, I finally get her on the phone in Los Angeles. And because I finally found somebody said, I think she's teaching in LA. So I call her, and this is a time when, you have like phone books and operators. So I went to a couple of Joanne, I finally get her. And she tells me this story, which I will not tell here. But what was amazing is that she had not told this story to anybody. And at that point, nobody knew the name of Mrs. Joanne Robinson, who was she was the co-chair with Mary Fair Burks of the Women's Political Council. They're the ones who sent the leaflets out, right? Nobody's talking about that at that point. It's Eyes where you first see that. It shows that the movement was planned. It's not just, spontaneous demonstrations like, oh, it's a movie, Ricky Mooney and Judy Garland. It was, they're thinking about this stuff, right? We showed that a number of the concepts that we organized around, and you'll see the full length of that in the larger piece that is online, what we organized around, and you'll see all of those incorporated in the piece that's in the book. But it's also the whole idea that it's local people who are not just the soldiers, because that's how we always talk about them. They are the leaders, they're not just the troops. And that if we don't know that, we don't know that it's people like us and our cousins and our so who can do the movement again. That was the whole point of Eyes on the Prize. Okay, in terms of the filmmaking, that first 14-hour series, as well as the other PBS series that Black Side did, like the War on Poverty, that was 6 hours, Great Depression, etc. It was produced by Black Side, a Black-owned, Boston-based company that was begun by Henry Hampton, who had been on the Selma and Montgomery March in 1965 and always wanted to do something on the movement. Now, the important thing is, you hear the voices only of those who actually participated in the events that we're covering in Eyes on the Prize. No scholars are included as talking heads. Now, they were very involved in helping us. We had like an 8-day school at the Kennedy Center on that first series, where we are grounded with documents and scholarship and being talked to by John Dittmer and Charles Payne and others. But the main point was, they are not the ones who are telling you the story. We story tells a movement through the voices of those who actually participated in that movement. It's the activists, it's the media people, it's the government people. We had John Doerr and the FBI. All of those folks, we had what we call we call them the opposition because we weren't supposed to be biased. It was something like, we called them something, but you would see, for example, the one who did the poses in Birmingham.
Bull Connor.
Bull Connor. So we get Bull Connor in front of his camper. We won't, sorry, I won't go on. The main thing is, we had a lot of different people, but it's always those who were involved in the event that we're talking about. We did not have any reenactments. And that was, we use only footage. And part of that is because Henry Hampton is a Black man. He is not, he's not even Stanley Nelson or Gates, Skip Gates. That is not happening at that point. Henry is the only Black man and Black person who was producing for PBS at that point. So we had to be very careful to be very documented and very, say for example, if you saw footage with a particular Birmingham 1963 demonstration and we had a date on it, that footage came from that date. It wasn't from 2 days ago, 2 days before, it was that date. We were very precise, very documented, and we had chronologies, and we had a lot of documentation as we were going through that. Black Side also gave a start to many young Black filmmakers, like Sam Pollard, who did Bloody Lounge in Portland, Jennifer and I were in. He did Marvin Gaye, he did Sam Davis Jr., League on the Negro Leagues. Tracy Strain, who did documentaries also for PBS, Lorraine Hansberry and Zora Neale Hurston, and so many other young Black and Latina and white young filmmakers who had not been part of the PBS system and get their start through Henry, who is willing to take a chance on us. And me, so I start here. That's it. Okay.
Very good.
All right, I now welcome SNCC veteran Jennifer Lawson. Please join me on the stage. Her work in Loudoun County and in SNCC's international connections is also documented in the book. Welcome. You're regal. I'm sorry. So regal. So one of our quiz questions was about the Black Panther symbol. Can you tell us why that symbol was used in the LCFO, the Loudoun County Freedom Organization?
Yes, the LCFO, the Loudoun County Freedom Organization, was an organization that was created by the African Americans who lived in Loudoun County. Loudoun County is right between Selma and Montgomery and along Highway 80, and because of that, when the march from Selma to Montgomery was taking place, the marchers went straight through Lowndes County. And the people in Lowndes kept thinking, Selma There's action in Selma. People are protesting their demonstrations. And also in the capital of Alabama in Montgomery. What about us? What about Lowndes County? And they knew they had a whole history of courage in Lowndes County. Lowndes was called Bloody Lowndes because it was such a violent place. I mean, there were so many Black people who were attacked there over the years, just for, not even for trying to register to vote, but even sometimes just because they owned land. Some of the most prominent landowners there were attacked, or a man who had a store. So all of those kinds of attacks were things that they had suffered under, and they wanted change. And that's when we in SNCC began to interact with the people in Lowndes, and they said, well, come and help us too. And that they started talking about wanting to register to vote. We had over 5,000 people who were eligible to vote, but who had not been able to do so because of this kind of violent intimidation. So they started getting registered to vote, and we had some of the most incredible conversations then, of course, because we said, well, what does it mean to vote? What's the value of the vote? And that was something that I think far too few people talk about today, which is how should we use this voting power? And it is power. Voting is power. Voting can be power. And they began to think, well, what kind of change would we want here in Lowndes County? It's like, oh my God, the sheriff is so awful. We need a new sheriff. The tax assessor, chiefs, we need a new tax assessor. The coroner, people die and you can't even get the right kind of records that you need. We need a coroner. So then they would say, I don't know who then knows the role, the work of these people. And so we had a researcher and SNCC who got the information about the different county offices and what the role of a sheriff, what the role of a tax assessor was. And then Courtland and I had the great fun of converting that into comic books, because we thought that way we could have something that was visually, we didn't have money to make films or anything like that. So we thought that this was something that would be visually engaging for people and could also carry the narrative of the story of why vote and how do you use your power for your county? How do you change your life in that way? We had a wonderful experience working with people, and when it came time that they were designing the symbol for their party, said, you know, the White Citizens Council here, their party is a white rooster, and there's a motto around his head. There's a motto that said, white supremacy for the right. And they said, what we need is a mean black cat. Run that rooster out of this county. And that's where there were legends about Black Panthers having been in Alabama. And so gradually the Black Panther became, yes, that's the symbol. And I had the great privilege of then throwing the Black Panther on billboards to try to make sure that people would know because with literacy so high, people use symbols, and that people then said, well, that's our symbol. We're going to vote for the Black Panther, and then we'll go home.
Wow.
That's powerful. Thank you so much for sharing the business with us. Oh yeah, that indeed that's me back in the day, and that is where we worked. That was our office, and we lived there as well. And Judy wanted me to make sure that I then informed you that it was the actual Democratic Party of Alabama, because in that time, those were the Dixiecrats, and that it was the Dixiecrats who had the symbol of the white rooster.
The Democratic Party, yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Next, I'm going to welcome Portland Cox.
Yay!
Portland is also doing work in Loudoun County.
Thank you.
All right, so Portland, please close out this part of the program by talking to us. Wait, who are they laughing at? Oh, okay, it's all good. I love it. Talking to us about the call to action that was in the 1960s, but also today.
Yeah. So I want to begin by the statement that Ms. Ella Baker had really imparted to us. And it's we who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
Yes.
And one of the things that people need to understand is that we've been engaged in an active struggle and really in a different, categorically different fight over 80 years. Right after World War II, the number of veterans, Black veterans, African-American veterans who fought overseas said that if they were to fight fascism overseas, they need to fight it here also. If they were going to fight minority rule overseas, they were going to fight it here also. So over the past 80 years, we have been engaged in a series of actions and strategies and tactics. You know, I started out, so you're talking about Brown versus Board of Education, that was a legal strategy. You know, but we thought we needed to move to the next level. So we engaged in freedom rides, we engaged in sit-ins and actually against public accommodations. And then we started thinking that was not enough. While it's all necessary, it was not enough because we got, into discrimination and public accommodations. But we engaged in voter registration. And we did a number of things like that. And one of the things that Jennifer mentioned, as we started talking about voter registration, we started talking about organizing our vote to achieve power. And then, at some point, the whole question of consciousness, Black consciousness came up, where, the question of who gets to define the Black community. Were we Negroes who had, not contributed nothing to the world? Or were we African Americans and Black people who had a noble history and had a sense of self? So in fact, we had to, really assert this question of defining ourselves to make a difference in America. And what was so profound in the call for Black power is that a number of other people started thinking about, our communities need power. The LGBTQ community, women's rights started being much more dynamic in that, and senior citizens. Now I appreciate that what they were doing. That happened. But I must say to you, this is the important thing about today and understanding today. This is a continuing effort, a continuing struggle. And one of the things that we need to notice and understand and appreciate, we are more powerful today than we've ever been in this country. We need to realize that. And in fact, we should not be talking about what they did for us. We need to talk about what we're going to do for ourselves and what is the contributions that we have to make on. So I'm saying to you, at the end of the day, when we started out, we just wanted to try to get into a lunch counter, even though the food was bad. There was some horrible food in this place. But to think about it, 1960, that's what we were doing. Today, we're talking about being president of the United States. Now, what will it take to get there, and what will it take to continue that fight? So I'm just saying to you, the people in this room all believe in freedom. We need to understand that we're the actors, and we need to continue to let people know of our power and begin to exercise our power. Don't let people tell us we have no power, we have no history, we have no worth. We create our own worth. And this is the fight to define America, and who is valuable in America is going on today. And it's been going on for a number of years. You're part of a long tradition.
All right.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is literally our stage. This is literally our stage, and no longer just the theater of the oppressed, instead being a theater of the liberated. Deborah, let me just check in with you. Any time for Q&A, or you gotta keep it, let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up. Thank you. I want to say thank you to everyone who joined us this evening, whether you are in the digital version of this time and space with us, or you're here in this physical space with us. Special shout outs to Busboys and Poets for hosting us. I want to give another warm acknowledgement to the wait and the kitchen staff.
I'll let them know about that.
The same poet told us, right? So nothing for Busboys and Poets. So here we are. We invite you to continue your conversations, and please, I had to put mine on stage. Get copies of your book signed. Lori's still in the back selling some books. And then we just double check. I'd like to do this. 35 years is no small feat. Right. So if you could stay to your feet, yes, as you're able, as your body allows. And let's just give another shout out, expression of gratitude for Teaching for Change for 30 years.